Hello, I hope you are having a absolutely lovely Earthfest so far. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It is so exciting to come back to Earthfest. My name is Ananya Singh, for those who don't know me, and I just graduated MCST last summer in 2020 as part of the Academy for Visual Performing Arts Multimedia. And I have been involved in EAC since its revival in 2018, and it was a really, really cool space to be in at MCST, and I learned a lot through my experiences there, and it is just so lovely that you invited me to speak. I'm so excited to get to talk to you a little bit about one of the things that I love the most in this world, which is community organizing in the climate movement, and especially the power that I believe that young people have, and just some things that I've learned that I just want to share about my own experiences that I hope can be a little bit helpful to all of you who are listening. So just to get us started, a little bit about where I'm coming to you from and who I am. I'm calling to you from Bar Harbor, Maine, where I go to school at College of the Atlantic, which is a really tiny school where everybody majors in human ecology, which is about the relationships between humanity and our natural and built environments. So it's kind of a school where everybody is passionate about something related to the environment and humans and how we relate to one another, which is very, very open-ended and interdisciplinary, and you have a lot of freedom to kind of design your own curriculum. So while I'm here, I am really excited about studying things about social movements, about climate change and climate justice, and also about like spirituality and politics and philosophy and like so many other things. And if anyone is ever interested in COA or is in the area in Maine, you have now a friend there. So, over the past 5 years, I have spent a lot of time just being in the movement, in the environmental and climate justice movement. And for me, that all got started in 2015, when around the time of the Paris Climate Agreement was being signed. And I was in middle school at the time, and I got people around me to write on little strips of fabric and pieces of ribbon something that they loved and didn't want to lose to climate change. And I will be completely honest, that was a really hard thing to do. Before this, I had never done anything remotely like organizing, and I did not think of myself as someone who had the ability to do that, and I would not describe myself as a leader in any way. And I always thought that helping the world was something that I was going to do when I was much older, and I was just waiting for that. But that summer, I went to this program called Youth Empowered Action, which is an amazing summer camp, and I would definitely recommend. Was a really important, powerful experience for me. And I went there and met a bunch of other young activists who were so passionate and badass and were doing so many cool things about issues that they were passionate about, like animal agriculture and hunger issues and climate issues. It was just so inspiring. And then I kind of had that realization that I've been waiting all this time for someone to give me permission to do something, but I've always had the ability to do this. I've had everything that I need to organize within me, and so do you. I just needed someone to tell me that. So hopefully I can be the person to tell you that you have all the power within yourselves to be a leader, to organize, and you have the confidence, the intelligence, everything that it takes to be a change maker and to affect change in this world. So I organized, I got people to do this, it went over some people's heads, it started a conversation that didn't exist previously, which is what was important, and it made me really invested in continuing this work. The next thing that kind of happened for me, the next step, was broadening my political awareness and realizing that who my Congress people were and who were my state representatives and what were they doing about these issues that mattered so much to me, and why had I never known anything about them before, and the things that they're doing and the legislation that is being considered. I tried to get my congressperson, who at the time was Leonard Lance, to sign the fossil fuel pledge, or the no fossil fuel money pledge, to say that he would not take money from fossil fuel industry donors. That was absolutely not successful, but it was a wonderful learning experience, and it kind of made me realize that, like, I absolutely have a stake in the political system, no matter if my politicians think that, if my parents think that, if other adults around me think that. Like, I know that I do, and also other young people all around the country and around the world are also realizing that we have such a powerful stake in the future, and we deserve our voices to be a part of the political system. And that there are so many things to pay attention to all around us. I've also done some really cool trainings over the past few years with organizations like the Sierra Student Coalition, and the organization called New Jersey Student Sustainability Coalition, which I helped somewhat to get off the ground in 2018. And which is now this really amazing network of high school students, college students, even some middle school students, from all across the state, who are just doing some really awesome organizing. And there are just so many different people who are part of that, and so many different skill sets that are involved, and different committees that are working on so many projects, whether you're into policy or arts activism or advancing diversity and inclusion within the movement, or building more connections and relationships between schools and communities. There is a place for you in that coalition, and it's amazing to see how much has continued to grow and grow and grow. And I will share the links for some of the things that I'm mentioning so that you can get involved afterwards. Also, around that time, there was a whole national conversation happening about the Green New Deal, and a global conversation happening about climate strikes. It was kind of initiated with the sit-ins, the Fridays for the Future with Greta Thunberg, and I helped along with a lot of other people to get that going in Morristown, and we organized some really cool things with hundreds of people, and that momentum is still around. There's some really cool organizing happening with Sunrise Movement in New Jersey, and there is a hub in Morris County that is continuing to advance a Green New Deal in whatever format that looks like now in our context, and in our current political situation. So those were some of the things that I've done, and some of the places that I found myself in my journey. And I just hope that it can be a guide of one pathway through. And I could probably ramble on and on and on about all the little things that happen in the midst, and all the little stories that happen. But my point in sharing all this is there's a billion ways to be an activist. There's a billion ways to be an activist, even right here in Morris County, New Jersey, even if you can't necessarily see it yet. And there is a place for you, and we need you, and you totally have the capabilities. So, some of the things that I was asked to speak about were about how someone in our generation and someone our age can get started, where to get started if you don't know where to start. And to those questions, my big answer is, like, do not be afraid to join something, and join something that's already in motion and already being organized. And at the same time, if something isn't happening and there's a gap and you see the potential for something to be happening, but you don't see yourself as the person who's able to lead that, don't let that stop you, because you totally can do it, even if you don't think you can. And there's so many people around who would be willing to support and help out. So that's kind of the gist of it. It's like, get started, join organizations, don't be afraid, you are powerful. The other thing is just kind of to share some of my pieces of advice and things that I've learned, advice from, like, a little bit of an older young activist to people who are also just as committed and, have just as much as a stake. So I wrote a little list of 5 things that I want to share with you, and and hopefully they can be helpful. So the first thing is relationships. Relationships matter so much when we're doing this work, and it's so important to just like take care of one another, pay attention to each other, and just like, yeah, don't get lost in this urgency. And in the midst of all this urgency, like, it's also important to recognize that we're all just human beings. And it's like the connections that you build with each other, that's what's going to really matter, especially because this struggle of working towards environmental and climate justice is going to take a long time. So relationships are so important and always worth investing in. The second thing is that it's also really important to take care of your own emotions and to take care of yourself as a part of this. There are so many emotions that come up as we do this work. There's fear, there's pain, there's loss, there's grief, there's guilt. There's this entire inner world and this inner way that climate affects us. And that is so real, and it's so important to acknowledge that and to communicate about it with each other and to not just like suppress it and move along. You're not being too sensitive if you care and your heart hurts when you hear about all the biological destruction, all the species going extinct, the biodiversity loss, all the lives that are lost because of climate chaos and violence that occurs in other systems of oppression. Like, those emotions matter so much. Also, the positive emotions too, the love and the care and the joy that's at the center of those negative emotions. Like, why do we feel so hurt by all this stuff that's going on to our planet? It's because we care about it and we have this love for the planet that's all around us. The third thing is that it is so important to recognize our power as well as our privilege. It is so easy to feel powerless and small and alone in this fight when you see it as a fight between you and these massive like systems that are happening in the world. But really, like, there are so many of us, and there are, that are in the struggle. We're not alone, and we have a lot of power when we're together. We also have a lot of privilege as people who are living in Morris County, people who have homes, people who have people that we care about, people who have clean air, good water to drink, a good education, the ability to connect to things like this on the internet, the time to be a part of clubs and groups like this. So many things. The list can go on and on about the things that we should be grateful for and paying attention to. We just have so much privilege, living in the place that we get to live in Morris County. And that's just really important to recognize, especially living in the United States, speaking English, being a part of the global north. Like, there's just so many resources that are at our fingertips. And that's just like always important to me to just draw my attention to time and again. Because it's just easy to forget, and it's easy to get caught up in all this other stuff. And that leads me to my next point, number 4, which is that don't be afraid to join something and not be a leader. And that might sound a little bit weird because I've been telling you that you have all this capacity to be a leader and you can start things if you want to start things. But also, there are a lot of things that are going on that need momentum and that need your energy and that need your passion and your drive and your energy to be a part of them. And there is this really toxic culture of just getting wrapped up in this competitiveness about, oh, what college am I going to get into? And I need to fill my resume with as many leadership positions as possible because that's how I'm going to get into a good college and have a successful future. But I just want to interrupt that narrative for a moment and remind us that, what we do because we care is more important. And if your heart is really in it and you're doing these things genuinely, that's what's really gonna matter, and that's gonna show up, and that's gonna be really evident to the people around you, the communities that you're in, every place that you bring that same spirit. And it's really hard to step away from that culture of competition, but in order to, get towards a future that we want, that's like moving away from all these systems of oppression, I feel like that's an important place to start. It's just like, don't be afraid to join and invest in things, even when your name is not attached. The last thing that I want to leave you with to kind of inspire you and get you thinking, is to remember the power of imagination and vision. I know that this might sound all like hippy-dippy and like, imagination, vision, but it's really, really important to not just think about all of the serious things and powerful things and the violent systems of oppression that we're working against, and like, we're working against fossil fuels and power plants and all this other stuff. But it's also really important to think about what is the world that we are trying to create, and what is the world that we are going to build when we are the people who have all the power. Because if we don't know that, then we're not going to move towards that future world. We have to be able to imagine this world before we can live it into being. And it's so important to build that skill and have a vision. What does a more just, sustainable, equitable, ecologically balanced future look like to you? What does it feel like in your body? What does it taste like to be in that world? I think it tastes like fresh fruit, and I think it feels like you are always being surrounded by love and joy, and there are communities, and we're moving beyond capitalist systems that are so destructive and so manipulative, and that we move beyond this culture of burnout and toxic productivity, and that we address like the emotions that are really at the root of a lot of the things that we're experiencing. So I want you to think about, what is your vision? I shared with a little bit about my vision, but what is yours? The future is really in our hands, and this is going to be really important as we continue throughout our lifetimes to try to reimagine the world as we know it. So thank you so much for listening to me talk. I will say once again, those 5 things that I just said that I want you to keep with you in your heart as relationships, emotions, power and privilege, joining things and resisting the college competition culture, and cultivating imagination and vision. I will share some links, my email, my contact information, so that you have them at your access. I'm always a resource, and I want to be of support to MCST community as much as I can. And I hope that you have a lovely rest of your Earth Week, and that you keep the energy up and keep up the good work and take care of yourselves. Have a lovely day, and I will talk to you at some point, maybe in the future, in the Zoomverse. Have a great day. All right, bye.